Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and you're very welcome to join myself and my colleagues today to talk about professional accreditation and the Royal Meteorological Society. So I've got a few slides to run through. We will take questions. We want this to be as interactive as possible, and hopefully by the end of it, the question, "Is it for me?" will be a resounding yes. So we'll see. So just a couple of top tips for Zoom. So for anybody who has used this before, you'll be familiar with the question and answer and chat function. By all means, use both. We'd like you, if possible, to pop your questions into the Q&A section and then just use the chat to either chat to us or amongst yourselves. If you want to make the PowerPoint slides bigger at any time, then just close the chat button and that will automatically enlarge the screen. And if you're having any technical issues, then we would recommend you try switching to a different browser. We would suggest either Chrome, Firefox, Safari or Edge. But we do have some technical support on the call with us today. So by all means, if you do have any problems, you can either jump off and email the events team or do what we're suggesting there. So just quick introductions. My name is Sharon Stevens. I'm the Membership and Accreditation Manager for RMetS, and I'm being joined today by Dr. David Flack, who you can see on the screen. David is a Fellow of the Royal Meteorological Society. He's also recently qualified Chartered Meteorologist, so he's going to come on at the end of my talk and just talk about his experiences and why he did that. And his job title is the Regional Model Evaluation Scientist. And then we've also got Regan Mudar joining us today as well. So Regan is a Science Engagement Fellow for the Royal Meteorological Society, specifically working in the area of youth and early careers. So really, really pleased to be joined by them today. And as I say, we'll come back to them in a little bit to sort of hear from them. So in terms of what I'm going to talk about today, well, it's all about professional accreditation and is it for you? So I'm just going to run through a little bit about what it is and who is it for. So I think there is a bit of a perception that you have to wait until you've sort of maybe done a little bit further in your career before you can consider doing something like professional accreditation. Well, hopefully I'll dispel some of that myths today. Why on earth would you want to do it? I think is another question that certainly I've been asked, so we'll try and talk a little bit about the benefits. We have an awful lot of resources available to you. So if you're thinking, I'm going to finish this presentation today and say, there you are, just get on and go away and do it. It's not like that. We have a lot of resources available to you. Generally, it's on the website, but in addition to that, we've got some sort of videos and different things that are available to members as well. So we'll run through a little bit about that. When is a good time to start? So again, we've heard this, I can't possibly do my CMAT until I'm like maybe coming towards the end of my career. That's not true. And David on with us today, hopefully we'll run through that as well. But I thought I'd start just by talking a little bit about the Royal Meteorological Society. And rather than hear from me, I've got a very short video which kind of sums it up very well. So if you sort of bear with me, hopefully this will run. We did just test it, so I'm hoping it's going to play all right and you can hear it.
So many conversations start with the weather, and so many answers are yet to be found. But it's when you make a connection, a physical connection, a scientific connection, a connection of interest, that's when the world can change and doors can open. Weather doesn't discriminate, and neither do we. There's been no greater time to unite in our passion for understanding weather and climate, and shaping the future of our world for the benefit of science and humanity. We may be over 170 years old, but we are not standing still. Our journals showcase the latest advances whilst drawing on the past, and our members are some of the most forward-thinking people on the planet. We are an independent voice uniting communities. We connect students with mentors, climate scientists with ecologists, communicators with researchers, and photographers with meteorologists, and we connect everyone with the weather. Whether you are working in the world of weather and climate, or just have a curiosity about the world around you, we are here for you. Join us in empowering future generations. Join us to learn something new. Join us on your career journey. Join us in our passion. Join us.
Thank you. So hopefully that gives you an overview of the society and some of the different areas that we get involved in. And just to sort of re-emphasize a couple of the points from that slide, there are three basic entry level of membership. So on the left there, I've got member and fellow. But what I'm hoping most of the people joining on my call today will be looking at is we also have a student and an early career membership, which I've kind of highlighted on the right here. And you will see actually that it's considerably less. So, and you will get all the same benefits. So I sort of recommend you go online, go to the membership accreditation pages. You can watch that video again. It automatically comes up. It can get a bit annoying actually, but it's also very useful just to remind yourself of what the benefits are. And then just as a simple screenshot, I've lifted this first image directly from the website. You can see on there, obviously we've been promoting today's webinar quite a lot, but the smaller boxes in there of notable interest anyway. I think we've recently revised what the early career definition is. So again, it's a really good piece of work that's just been undertaken by the Society. So I'd recommend you go in there and have a little read of that. And then we've also are promoting something, we've got something called a travel support in the form of a fund, specifically again for early careers. And that's not the only grants and funding opportunities that we offer. So again, it's just go into the website, have a little look around, and you'll see that actually there's a huge amount of information on there. Underneath that, I've just lifted the image that is promoting our latest series of masterclasses. You may or may not have heard about them. We've been running them for about 4 years now, and we do them together with the University of Reading. They are extremely well attended. We have some fantastic speakers. So we've got Ed Hawkins will be coming along in a few weeks' time, and they talk about the latest science or research. And they'll talk, very extensively about that. And then we get some people from industry will come on and sort of say, well, this is how we're going to apply that to our everyday job. Really, really good CPD. All our events, you can automatically log up onto our your CPD records. So as a professional, CPD records is something you will need to maintain. So we try and help facilitate that as much as we possibly can. And then on the right-hand side there, that's just the front cover of our latest monthly membership magazine called Weather. So again, whenever we sort of ask our members, which of the benefits do you get the most from, this consistently comes out top. So you can have it in print version, or you can select it online and you'll get it slightly cheaper. So that's just a really, really brief overview of some of the membership benefits that I thought might be of interest. But what we're really here to talk about today is RMetS Professional Accreditation. So we offer two schemes. So we've got the registered meteorologist, which carries the post-nominal RMet. Generally for people working in the early stages of their career, it's not always the case, but usually maybe working in a role supporting Met services. And then we also have our chartered meteorologist, which carries the post-nominal CMet. And that's our highest level of professional accreditation. So you're looking for someone with a little bit more experience and knowledge. The schemes are hierarchical, recognising different levels of professional competence and experience, and are consistent in concept and scope with similar accreditations for other professions. A feature of both schemes is that they are competency-based to assess the application of knowledge of Met science and practice, and this is demonstrated through extensive practical experience. RMetS, as I said, it's ideal for those in the early stages of their career and paves the way usually to becoming CMet. I should stress you don't need to do RMet to then do your CMet. That's not a prerequisite, but sometimes if you're at the early stages of your career, RMetS is a good starting point. We'll run through some of the areas that we are trying to capture in your application in a little bit more detail, but essentially they're broken down into your scientific background, your Met science and practice, looking for about 3 years practical experience, and then you need to be able to evidence against the competencies for RMet and CMet. So, and I will talk a little bit more about some of those competencies in more detail as we go on. All members are expected to be a member of the Royal Met Society, And we have something called a code of conduct. So that just shows that you abide to certain ethics, and also you will maintain a continuing professional development record, or CPD. So let me just run through some of that in a bit more detail. What are the benefits of it? Well, the framework to support your career development, I guess, comes out top, and also demonstrates to individuals that you have reached, but more importantly, you are continuing to maintain a specified level of professional knowledge. And I think that's really, really important, because CPD is called for every 2 years. And in that, you'll be able to sort of demonstrate where it is you're keeping your knowledge up to date. It's benchmarked against wider national and international frameworks, including the World Meteorological Organization standards. It gives you recognition of your role, your skills, and there is a wide range of specialisms. We have over 50 of them, which is not to put you off. Hopefully it just demonstrates that we have a wide breadth and range of different backgrounds that people will come to us with, and I'll show you on the next slide some of the more popular ones. Demonstrates your commitment not only to your own professional career, but to organisations, and we work a lot with organisations who use this as part of their recruitment package, either to put people through, or if people are presenting with professional qualifications, sometimes that can give them a little bit of the benefit. And then finally, the commercial advantage to the organisation we're finding is when they've got professionally accredited members of the team and they're going into sort of maybe bid for a bit of work, it can just give them an advantage over some of their competitors. So there's lots of benefits in it. These are just some of the highlights. You also get a very nice badge, depending on whether you're RMet or CMet. It will either be silver or gold, and you can have that digitally, but also we send out an enamel badge as well. And trust me, people wear them with pride. In terms of the different types of specialisms I've mentioned, we've got 50. There's a lot. We're trying to narrow that down, but we're continuously getting new ones to add to it all the time. We do also have other. So in the event you couldn't find anything that was relevant, just tick other, and then you can see whether that's met or non-met. These are the top ones. Weather forecasting, general. It is what it says. It is very general, but they're the ones that certainly is the most popular. Then you come down to aviation forecasting, broadcast meteorology, and so on. The list goes on and on and on. But hopefully, it's really hard. I wanted to present something that would sort of give people choice and demonstrate, you know, there isn't just a narrow field of which you need to be able to demonstrate that professional experience. It's very, very wide ranging. Sorry, this is so small. But again, this slide is just to try and demonstrate which organisations people are working for. I don't think it will come as any great surprise to see the Met Office are by far the largest number of people with professional accreditation. But we are starting to see other organisations also come, you know, get their staff qualified. So I've got DTN in there. Fleet Weather might not be an organisation you're familiar with. I don't know. They are based in America and they do marine forecasting. They wanted to take their team through professional accreditation, and they recently put 25 members of their team through. So that's why they're on the list. But you've got Royal Navy and lots of other organisations now are also starting to come and put their staff through professional accreditation. So another sort of piece of work that we've been doing is we've been trying to understand a little bit more about our early career audience. And broadly speaking, we've kind of grouped them into two camps. Now, this is by no means an exact science, and I would love to get feedback from people on either on this meeting live today, or we're going to share the video more widely. But broadly speaking, we've got what we term as an early career professional, so may have graduated from the university up to perhaps 7 years ago, like to be promoted and earn more money. I think we'd all like that. They're usually based in the UK, perhaps working as an RMet or a forecaster, very career driven, and a lot of them have told us they're working shifts. In terms of their career progression, they're looking to build their experience. They're quite active on social media, would consider professional accreditation if their employer promoted or supported it. We're doing our best to get that to happen. Perhaps interested in to find a member, but what's in it for them? What's in it for them? How does it help their job? Is it financially worth it? And how will this help me progress over my peers? So this is what we've been trying to understand about this particular group of people. And therefore, how do we make sure our RMet and our CMet align? And if people are seeing this as a step in their career progression, you know, we make sure that we can provide enough help and support for them to be able to do it. And then the other type of early careers that we know a little bit more about are the ones who are working in research. So again, perhaps graduated up to 7 years ago, but working in academia. They're interested to know how will they get their papers published, and they're, again, career driven. And a lot of them engage with us on activities, including volunteering. So for example, how to write articles for our journals. In terms of their career progression, they're looking for those opportunities to publish research, mentoring, funding we've touched on, of which we have several different options. Again, active on social media, usually very politically aware, keeping up with latest research and developed skills. So we're trying to build up more of a better understanding of our early career members and potential audience to ensure that we're putting out relevant content for them. So again, any feedback on any of this is really, really helpful. But to get back to professional accreditation, so we have something called Access. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about process here, and I've tried to make this as interesting as I possibly can. But when you become a member of the society, you get access to something called Access. It's only for members. You can, I'll sort of take you around in a little bit in a minute, but you can link it if you want to your personal objectives. It's where you'll record all your CPD activities, and it's where you will also do your RMet or your CMet application and continue with your renewal. This is what happens when you get to, I'm just doing this from the professional accreditation website page. So the first thing you will do is you will log in as a member. So when you join, you'll be given login details. You'll then get this bar that shows Access, and that's what I'm talking about. That's what you need to click into. When you get into Access, you'll be presented with this page. You can see across the top there, you've got a little bit about RMetS. This is talking about CPD, your objectives, reports. But what we're interested in is that accreditation application. So you click on that. That then takes you to this homepage here. We've got several videos. We're about to update this because we're also updating our Access. I would really strongly recommend that you take time to look at the resources before you really start. So have a look at this, but also have the guidance notes to hand, because it really, really does benefit when you're putting together your application form. When you've done all that and you think, yeah, I'm ready for this, you then click on how to apply for accreditation. That then takes you through to this page. A lot of tabs at the top. David in particular will be very familiar with all of this. Most of it, I think, is fairly straightforward. So it's asking things for your education, obviously details about yourself. You also select whether you want to do your RMet or your CMet here. But what I thought we'd do today is we'd look at the evidence of core competencies, because this is the bulk of what you'll need to do. And there are 5 areas. So I've just broken them down here. I'm going to go through this really simply, but I'm going to hopefully get you thinking a little bit about what you might be able to jot down or bullet point. I think I've said, yeah, have a go of writing at least one bullet point against each of the competencies below. So if you take your application of knowledge, have you got any skills, or have you used any methods recently that you might have used to address a problem, for example? And then just moving on, personal responsibility. Have you exercised responsibility in planning and implementing tasks? For example, and this is just an example, a safe working practice. As I've just really lifted out very high level for the purposes of today. There is more information if you've got time to go through it in detail in the guidance notes. So the third competency is interpersonal skills. So have you been involved in a productive working relationship with an ability to solve a problem, for example? And then finally, professional practice, and that's all about keeping your CPD up to date. So I've already mentioned we have huge, extensive, lots of events. I think we've got at least one a week, if not more. And as soon as you register and you attend or you watch it, you can hit that straight through to your CPD record, and I'll update it, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then the final competency is professional standards. So this is something that you would sign up to. It's a code of conduct. We share that with you. It's about acting in a professional capacity and, not doing anything that might, I'm sure it would never happen, but might lead to a complaint in a society. And that's something we would share with you. And again, nothing necessarily to worry about. Nothing to worry about, I should say. So I'm just going to very quickly talk about CPD because this is another part of the professional application. So just going back to that original homepage that I shared with you earlier, this time you would be selecting a CPD record. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. We're about to make it even easier for you. Usual, nice video, how to add it, and it's our chief executive as well, updating her own CPD record. So I recommend a watch. And then when you're ready, you can add a new CPD record. And I've used today as an example of that. So you're presented with a page like this, and if you wanted to have a go, you could do this. You could say, I've attended this webinar today. So you just give it a little bit of the title. You select the CPD type. Now I've selected promoting and presenting because I kind of feel that's what I've hopefully done today. But there are a lot more. There's a lot more different categories. So don't. I think pretty much we've got such an extensive list there. It'd be hard not to find one. And then you kind of say, well, which of those 5 areas of competency is this CPD going to be relevant to? And I've ticked those 3. And I won't show you today, but what that then does is links it back through to your professional accreditation application. So when it says, what's the evidence and what CPD have you got to sort of demonstrate this, this is where you do it, and this is where it all links up. So we think it's very easy. Once you've done it once or twice, you kind of get into a rhythm. I know a lot of people do it all in one go. Some people are very good and can keep it up to date, but it's up to you really as an individual how best you feel you could do that. And then at the bottom there, I just do a little bit of a description of what it is. And that's it, she says. That's it's a whirlwind tour around. I hope it's been helpful. I have got one more video and then I'll hand over to David. But we've also got a video on the professional accreditation pages, which is like a top tips. So I would recommend before you do anything, you watch this. It makes reference to a self-assessment questionnaire, which is the link underneath this video on the website. And that you can just go through and ask yourself a few questions, and it will automatically tell you whether you're RMet or you're CMet ready. If you just bear with me for literally, I think this is a minute, and then I'll stop sharing and I'll hand over to David. Lovely, thank you very much. So I'd now like to hand over to Dr. David Black, who I've said is a Fellow of the Royal Meteorological Society, recently qualified CMet, and he works at the Met Office as a regional model evaluation scientist. So David, I'll stop sharing the slide and then hand over to you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Sharon. Hello, everyone. Please wait while I share my screen. So, hopefully you should now see my screen. So what I wanted to do with this is take you through my accreditation journey. what I was thinking about, what motivated me to apply, sort of some of the processes of the accreditation steps, and sort of the benefits and things that I've sort of learned over time, and some useful tips and hints. So starting off with, I thought I'd start off with sort of something fun, which was essentially a look back at my career, but in weather charts on the first days of things, just to sort of give you something to look at rather than a load of text. So I first really started my passion for meteorology in July 2007, and pretty much under this particular shortwave trough, there was an intense supercell that passed over the location I was staying at the time, and a tornado happened. So obviously, sort of one of those really exciting events that sort of really makes you sit and think and get interested. So that's really when my passion started, and I started thinking that maybe I would like a career in meteorology. Then 2 years later, so this was literally just before the start of my A-levels. So 2 years later, I then started at the University of Reading on the Master's Meteorology course. So that's meteorology of a year in Oklahoma. Obviously, very different weather on the day I started, with high pressure over the UK, a little bit of cloud, if I remember correctly, as well. Joining when I went to Reading, and so I spent 4 years on that course. Had a great time with all the students and learning absolutely everything you possibly could. And that was really when, as well, I found that I wanted to go into a sort of more research side of things. So that led to the application for a PhD project, and I was successful there. And again, that was at the University of Reading. And so my PhD was sort of a lot into looking at convective thunderstorms, how they're predicted and how they behave within the models. And it was really during my PhD that I started to gain a lot more skills and experience around the topic, but also specifically around convection, but also more generally. Following on from my PhD, I sort of wanted an academic career, so I started a short postdoc in 2017. Again, sort of fairly changeable weather conditions, but actually still quite nice over Reading at the time. So I did that for around about 11 months. And it was in work very similar to my PhD, and sort of looking at convection and evaluating its performance in the models and how we can actually use that within a forecasting context. I then changed topics, but I didn't change area. So I then moved to France for a couple of years, based in Paris, and I was looking at extratropical cyclones in climate models, and really focusing on the processes of how they're represented within NWP, and sort of starting to build a reputation for myself as an evaluation scientist. So I was in France for a couple of years, again, completely different experience to Reading. But still really valuable in sort of picking up skills and different ways of looking things by sort of changing scales. Then finally, sort of in 2020, so this was, you'll notice on the date, sort of 16th of March 2020, so this was really close to the lockdown starting. So I started at the Met Office at a really interesting time, having just got back from France, having cleared all the health checks to say I was okay to travel back to the UK, given the situation at the time. But yeah, so I then started off in the Met Office, then had to move back in with my parents because I didn't have anything useful like internet set up, to then eventually move back down to Devon at some point later in the year when the country started opening up again and we were allowed to have a bit of movement. And I've been in the Met Office ever since 2020, so just over 4 years now. And it was whilst I was at the Met Office that I really started to think, well, actually, should I apply for an accreditation? So why did I apply? Well, essentially, I've got a very, very strong passion for meteorology, particularly working out how the different phenomena link together and all the various different physical processes and connections. But also as well, I spend most of my time, other than when I'm working, I spend most of it outside, either doing something in my garden, going for local walks, etc. So my life is very much revolves around the weather. And given the area that I specialise in terms of process-based evaluation, my customer is really your forecaster. So I sort of help say we can trust the model because it does this process correctly. And for me, the accreditation will sort of help them have greater trust in what I do. And they can sort of understand, because a lot of them are already either registered or chartered. So they understand sort of skills and level you need to be working at to actually achieve the accreditation. So sort of just as a very brief overview of my timeline. So I actually started thinking about applying in April 2021. I sort of was doing a lot of reading around it, talking to a couple of the chartered meteorologists within the Met Office. And I sort of had a long, hard think. I was like, okay, I've got enough experience, but maybe I could just confirm it that little bit more. So I sort of, in April 21, said, I'll apply in about 2 years' time. And this sort of was useful for a couple of reasons. One, I could give myself a target date for developing my skills, but also two, because I needed to enter 7 years of CPD onto the system. So that is probably the bit that took the longest in my application. So I started my application in September 2022. And essentially September through to January was going through entering all my previous CPD records onto the system. It's not something you can do in one hit. It does take a little bit of time to really think about it. So here's sort of the first bit of advice: start early and try and keep it up to date, because doing 7 years in one go is time consuming. And then sort of really what I was doing between January and February was actually writing the application, which involves sort of several drafts, checking with referees that they'd be happy to be referees for me, and sort of making sure I was saying the right sort of things. So I submitted my application end of February and then had my interview in June. So yeah, a lot of my experience, this is where I'm going to start giving useful tips. So the earlier you start with entering CPD, the better, because it is time consuming. For me, picking a specialism was hardest. And that was in part because I came from an academic background. And when academics often talk about specialisms, it's sort of one particular mechanism or one very narrow field, when in reality, the specialism is actually quite broad. So it was working out exactly where I fitted within the different specialisms, and sort of ended up coming up with multiple specialisms to give a rough overview of what I did. And then sort of within my career appraisal, that's where I went specifically and said, this is where my specialism lies. And it's sort of covered by these three areas, but this is my true specialism. So you can use the appraisal to be a lot more specific about what you're doing rather than sort of just the broader topics, if you like, as well. And to me, at least, I found the appraisal quite therapeutic, sort of just seeing what I'd done and what I'd actually achieved. And then the competencies description was probably actually quite easy once you've done all the CPD records in, because it then just sort of effectively writes itself. So this is the bit probably where people would be a little bit nervous, is this idea of the interview. And sort of one of the things that I say is other than thanks to Bob and Paul for making it a great chat, don't view it as an interview. It's not an interview. It's a chat with other scientists about your work, about various different topics. And it was probably one of the most entertaining and enjoyable discussions I've ever had. The amount of topics we covered, so just a few of them I've sort of mentioned here. And you can see it is incredibly varied, from sort of more personal skills to sort of future interpretation to details around the actual work that I was doing and my views on certain different topics. And I think at the end of the day, I was surprised it was so short. I wanted it to go on for longer. I could have happily gone on for longer. And I'd actually happily do it all over again. So don't worry about it. It was great fun. So the benefits that I've sort of noticed so far, and bear in mind I've only been accredited since June 2023, so I'm still finding out some of the benefits as well. It's given me new opportunities, such as being invited to talk here. So thank you for inviting me. But also as well, it's sort of confidence boosting to know that you've got the skills. Even when you're sort of having, where everyone has bad days, and sometimes it's just nice to actually go, hang on a second, I'm chartered, I can do this, it's all okay, I can, just build your confidence back in yourself. And it's about being externally recognised rather than just you saying it, you've got some extra form of validation. And it's a big way of showing my commitment to the subject and the fact that I want to spend the rest of my career within the subject. So I thought I'd give you a few bits of advice. You don't have to be advanced in your career. So I did this 7 years after my PhD. And you don't have to be in forecasting. Because that was probably one of the misconceptions I had. I thought it was very much related to industry and insurance, but I'm a research scientist, and research scientists can apply as well. So it is definitely something to think about, and I definitely recommend going for it. So I thought I'd just leave you with the chart of when I became chartered. And please contact me for more.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David. I thought that was really, really interesting. I particularly liked what you said about the interview, because you're right. I think people hear the word interview and immediately start feeling a little nervous, and also that peer review pressure. And actually, on the other side of it, when I talk to some of the people involved in the interview process, they really do learn a lot from the applicant. So it's a two-way thing. It works very, very well. I thought that was excellent and really, really helpful. I noticed there are a couple of questions. I will come back to them, but I just wanted to share my screen again. Because we also invited a newly qualified RMet to come and join us today. Unfortunately, Zoe wasn't available, but she did send this lovely sort of little testimonial through to us. I won't read it all out in its entirety, because there is quite a lot of information on there, and these slides will be shared more extensively anyway. However, what I sort of picked up from it was that she felt she wanted to push herself and prove to her peers, that she had obtained a level of awareness and knowledge, and she found that the RMetS professional accreditation was not only a very rewarding experience, but also it gave her that recognition that she was looking for. So I thought this was great. And again, she did her RMet first. Paul is now CMet for different. Sorry, Paul David is a CMet now for different reasons. But yeah, I just thought that was really nice. And as I say, we will share this so you can read it in its entirety at your leisure. So I'm going to bring Regan on now because she's been waiting extremely patiently, and then we'll come back for questions. So this is Regan Woodar. She's our Science Engagement Fellow for RMetS, specifically working in youth and early careers. And I've just invited her today to talk a little bit about the work that she's been doing. So Regan, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, sure. So this isn't specifically about accreditation. This is more kind of aimed at those of you in the audience who are maybe students, early careers. The Royal Meteorological Society do a lot for youth and early careers, and I work with the Society as the Science Engagement Fellow, essentially to ensure that the Society are accounting for the needs of and considering the perspectives of youth and early careers in all kind of society initiatives, where it's appropriate, of course. And I also help to run this kind of some specific youth and early career focused activities too. So, for example, today's event is one that I'm involved with from that perspective. And so as part of my role, I actually chair, or co-chair, I should say, a youth and early career special interest group. So that's made up of around 20 people, ranging from undergraduates to PhDs, postdoctoral researchers, and early career professionals who work in industry. And since we launched that group about 2 years ago, we've kind of fed into and even led a very wide variety of youth and early career initiatives. So, for example, we renamed the annual student conference to the Early Career and Student Conference to be more inclusive of those who are no longer students. We also, as Sharon mentioned, we surveyed early careers in industry and also in academia last year to kind of redefine what it means to be early career, again, to be more inclusive and to be, I guess, more considerate of the kind of winding paths that our careers can take. And one of the things we did last year was we actually relaunched the Student Ambassador Programme. So for those of you of the call who are still at university, we now have over 30 student ambassadors across 20 different universities. And I believe that we'll probably go through the recruitment process again, sort of from the summer onwards. So if you're interested, definitely keep an eye out for that. I help kind of feed into various kind of RMetS events. So we had an insight into operational meteorology last December, I think. The Youth and Early Career SIG members have fed into the annual Weather and Climate Conference, as well as the Early Career Conference. Today's accreditation event came out of the SIG ASIG meeting a little while ago. And one of the things I want to talk about is Diverse Voices, which is kind of a new initiative that I've been involved with. So we actually have an event next Tuesday on the 26th of March, and we're going to hear from an associate professor called Anita Gannison from Bristol, and she's going to be talking about her experience as a woman of colour in academia and her journey to what is actually a pretty senior position now. And the idea of these Diverse Voices events is to basically highlight the diversity we have in the field. And we've sort of started with a focus on people of colour within the UK, but we're planning to sort of expand that to even greater diversity because, I mean, weather and climate is a pretty diverse place to be right now. I also wanted to mention that if you're a member, there are various benefits. So the Early Career and Student Conference, if you're a member, you can get slightly reduced rates when you register for that. We're also hoping to kind of release some training videos. So if you're a scientist and you are interested in communicating your science to the media, whether that is traditional like newspapers or if you want to do it on social media, then we're actually filming some training videos that will be released soon. And that's an idea that has come directly from youth and early career members of the society. This is something that they wanted the society to provide them. And so we've made these and they should be available very soon. For those of you who are maybe not in academia or are thinking of moving into a career in climate, for example, we're going to be releasing a careers in climate information booklet in the summer, and we're hoping to kind of have some more careers, or I should say industry focused careers initiatives and also resources available in the future as well. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the Society has a lot going on for people who are at university or are starting out in their careers, and you can find information about a lot of these things, particularly events, just by visiting the RMetS website. And I think that's it from me, Sharon.
Amazing, Regan. And as you say, there's a huge amount going on, and it's really good when we come together like this to hear about it, because I appreciate that people are extremely busy. So, you know, expecting people to visit our website and learn about this all themselves, you know, is a high ask. So thank you to everybody on the call for giving us the opportunity to run through some of this with you. And I hope you'll agree that there is a lot, and we're trying to do more, as I've alluded to David and also Regan. So we've got a bit of time left to go through questions. I've got three in the Q&A, which I will between us all, I'm sure we can answer. So the first question, sorry, it's anonymous, I don't have a name, I can read out, is can you add competencies retrospectively, and how far back can you add? So David, I don't know if you want to have a go at this one. So when you did your application, obviously you were going back, you mentioned about all the CPD records that you went. So in terms of your competencies, how did you approach that?
Yeah. So what I did was I sort of grouped my different, I started it in sort of various different ways. So I sort of started off with my papers, because they're the easiest ones for me to sort of talk about, partly because that was sort of one of the records that I had. So I sort of started with papers and the conferences and the various other meetings and the training. So it was really easy to sort of enter back into the system. And in terms of sort of first dates, I think my first competency record was probably from sometime during my undergraduate, so 2000 and sometime between 2009 and 2013. And I think I could have gone back further as well if I wanted to. And it was relatively easy because the competencies have sort of the various different bullet points to sort of help show where your work fits in. It was really easy to actually put them in and sort of say, okay, this one corresponds well to that one, this one possibly less so in that particular area. Is probably sort of my best way of answering that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Good advice too, very good advice. I also liked your comment about the CPD record, because, you know, it's great that you went back 7 years. It's absolutely fantastic. And the more you put in, the better picture it gives to the people who then come on to interview you. And I think we should stress as well that at that point, they've not met you. So really the contents of your application are extremely important. And you know, it's very difficult not to be over modest about this, but you kind of really have to sell yourself off that sheet, you know, that piece of paper, just to sort of give them enough information to be able to then come and, you know, and do you justice when they get to interview. So I think the CPD records does tend to get people stuck a little bit. It's, you know, we try to make it as easy as possible, but as you say, start early. I thought that was really good advice. We've also got a question from Piala, I apologise if I've not pronounced that correctly, who is a standard member right now and looking to apply for their fellow status by submitting an application through their account. Do I need to apply afresh and pay again? Please can you advise? So the answer to that is no, you don't need to apply afresh again, but you do need to just complete the fellowship report. There is some information on that. So we go to the website, have a look at the guidance notes, see how you kind of think you're going to meet the requirements of it. Referees are also sometimes give people a few problems in terms of finding one, because one of them should be a fellow of the society. You run into any problems, just come to us and ask us. But yeah, that would be great if you could you do your application for fellowship, and then maybe you'll go on like David or Zoe and do your RMet or CMet. Hopefully that answers that question. David, I've got another question for you. So this time, again, it's an anonymous person, so I can't acknowledge you personally, but David, were all the topics discussed in your interview linked to your background, stroke, role and specialism, or were there more general random topics? the question?
Yeah, so it's a sort of very freely evolving conversation. So one of the topics I had was machine learning, that we briefly discussed about, and I hadn't written anything about machine learning within my application. So you can get one or two topics that aren't necessarily out there. A lot of it does stick to your application, and it's essentially whatever the panel finds interesting. So it starts off with a presentation that you do on a recent bit of work, or if you've sort of had a recently published paper or a recent conference presentation, you can sort of just recycle information from that. Then you get a few questions around that bit of work, and then they sort of move into various other topics that they notice in the application that they're interested in. So I'd mentioned a little bit about fog forecasting in my application because I was just starting a bit of work on looking into how fog's forecast. So as our sort of a general topic around how is actually fog currently forecast at the moment at the Met Office, which is sort of where I mentioned that it's sort of they use a mix of NWP and empirical forecasting techniques. And I sort of got a question along the lines of, are you surprised that the empirical techniques are still being used? Because they've been around for several decades. And, you know, surely it should all be NWP. So we sort of had a little bit of a discussion around the benefits of empirical techniques versus NWP. And so sort of that shows how it's sort of freely evolving and you never quite know where it's going to end up.
Brilliant, thank you. That's all the questions I've got in the Q&A. I don't know if there's any other more general chat before we sort of round up and close out with final thoughts. I've personally found this really interesting, and it's just great having Regan and David on the call today. Regan talking about all the amazing stuff that you're doing with your special interest group, and David just to hear your experience as well, because you know people come through, they go through the system, they get their RMet, they get their CMet, and we don't necessarily get the opportunity to talk to them like we have today about their experiences and the reasons behind why they were doing it. So it's been incredibly helpful. For me, I would sort of, in terms of the next steps, I would recommend you go onto that website, have a look at professional accreditation, maybe just do the self-assessment questionnaire. If you do nothing else today, it takes literally about a minute. And at the end of which it will just say whether it's RMet or CMet, or you know, maybe you've got a little bit more experience to build up. But it's really simple, and you know, if it gets you thinking about it, then we've done our job. That's what we were trying to do today. But I don't have any more to say. I don't know, David, did you have any closing thoughts or anything?
I suppose it's sort of don't put it off to the last minute. Think about it early, because then you can sort of prepare and build up your gaps. It's definitely worth applying for. And there's loads of people that are happy to help you. And of course, feel free to contact me as well, because I'm happy to give advice and mentoring in the application should you wish it.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. And we are relaunching our mentoring platform this year as well. And again, in particular, that's come from the Youth and Early Career Special Interest Group. That group of people seem to really want us to do that because they would get a benefit from it. So mentoring is something that's very, very high on our list of things to relaunch this year as well. So look out for that too. Regan, I'll just come to you for any final thoughts.
I think I'd just highlight something that David said, but also something that Zoe had in her testimonial, which is about kind of boosting confidence in your own abilities. To me, that's what stands out most about going through the accreditation process, because you lay out yourself what you've achieved in your career so far. So I can imagine that it probably feels pretty nice to see that
Yes.
on paper. Yeah.
No, absolutely. No, totally agree with you. Totally agree. Very rewarding experience. So that's it from all of us. Thank you very much, everyone. This recording will be made available, and you know, if you found it useful, please let your colleagues know. And you know, we're happy to redo this again at some point in the future if it's helpful. But just to say Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.